AP 120, Chapter 12, Topics Blood Types. So, what are the blood types? Well, I hope you say AB, 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 and O, and each of these have a plus and or a minus. So A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus, AB plus, AB minus, and O plus, O minus. And these letters A, B, and plus uh, are actually surface structures found on the surface of red blood cells. And these surface structures are called antigens. So an antigen is anything on the surface of a cell that can be seen, as it were, detected by leukocytes. And really, leukocytes don't see things so much as they go around touching things. And if you get an immune response to antigens that don't match what the leukocytes expect. So the leukocytes go around touching all the cells, touching everything around them, and if they feel something that isn't shaped right, then that is a invading antigen, and then that will cause an immune response. So leukocytes touch the expected shapes, the expected antigens, then nothing happens, but if they touch an unexpected shape, an unexpected antigen, then you get an immune response. And on the red blood cells, on erythrocytes, we have A, B, and RH. RH, if you have it, you have the plus symbol. If you do not have it, you have the minus symbol. So blood type A. Blood type A means you have antigen A on the surface of your red blood cells. And then that is considered a normal self-antigen. You also have anti-B antibodies, so antibodies against the B antigen, because again, it's not found on your blood cells, so it is not supposed to be in your body. Type B blood, on the other hand, has the B antigen on the surface of the red blood cells. And so the B antigen is considered part of the self. And then someone with type B blood would also have anti-A antibodies. These are antibodies that bind to the A antigen, because if your blood type is B, the A antigen is not supposed to be there. So you have antibodies against it. If you have blood type AB, then you have both A antigens and you have B antigens on the surface of your red blood cells. You have both A antigen and B antigen, which means that those are supposed to be there for you. And so you have no antibodies against those antigens. Again, they're supposed to be present, so there are no antibodies that would attach and attack them. And if you have type O blood, then you do not have A or B antigens. They are not present on the surface of your red blood cells. Your red blood cells are nice and smooth. And this means you have antibodies against A, so anti-A antibodies, and antibodies against the B antigen, so anti-B antibodies. They are out there to bind to these antigens because, again, they're not supposed to be in your body if you're blood type O. So normally, as we know, this is what blood would look like in nice, healthy blood sample. And we need to know someone's blood type before we give a blood transfusion. Because if you give them the wrong kind of blood, say give someone who's A, B blood, then you end up having agglutination occur. So here is the image of blood sample when agglutination is occurring, and that is not desired. We don't want all the red blood cells to clump up like this. So if you get the incorrect blood type, then the antibodies that you have in your blood that do not like the antibodies on the new blood cells will then bind to those blood cells, and they will interconnect, giving you a large, huge clot of red blood cells. Agglutination is not good on these massive levels, and these big clots can then block important blood vessels, leading to strokes, heart attacks, and death. So again, you do not want to get the wrong blood type, because then your antigens would bind to the new blood that has the wrong surface antigens, and your antibodies would lead to the agglutination and the clotting and the blood vessels getting blocked. Now, of course, there's also the Rh blood types, which is either positive or negative. So if it's positive, then you have the Rh antigen on the surface of your red blood cells. and then you would have no antibodies against the Rh antigen. Rh antigen present on your red blood cells, supposed to be in your body, so no antibodies against it. If you're Rh negative, then you lack the Rh antigen. It is not present on your red blood cells. They are smooth, and you will have antibodies against the Rh. So you have anti-Rh antibodies that would then bind to the Rh antigen because it does not belong in your body. Now, technically, someone who's Rh negative doesn't initially produce the anti-Rh antibodies. They have to initially be exposed to Rh positive blood. But whenever you give someone a blood transfusion, there's no way to know if they've been exposed or not, so you should always pay attention to whether they are positive or negative. So my blood type is A plus or A positive. Who could I receive blood from? Pause the video if you want to think about this. The answer is I can receive blood from someone who's A positive, who matches my blood type, someone who's A negative, someone who's O positive, and someone who's O negative. So I can receive blood from anyone who has the same antigens as I or less. So A positive, they have both the A antigen and the Rh antigen, just like I do. A minus, they have the A antigen only. I have that, so that's fine. O positive, they have the Rh antigen, so do I, so that's good. O negative, they lack both antigens, and that is perfectly fine for me. So again, which antigens are on my erythrocytes? It's A and Rh. Those are the ones on my surface of my red blood cells. And what antibodies are in my plasma? Hopefully you said anti-B antibodies. Since I do not have the B antigen, that B antigen should never be in my body. So I have antibodies, anti-B antibodies against that antigen in case it ever shows up. So again, I can receive blood from people who have the same antigens as I or less. All right, which blood type is the universal donor? It can donate blood to anybody. Hopefully you said O negative. O negative, remember the negative, O negative is the universal donor. There are no antigens on their red blood cells, smooth as a baby's butt, so they can be giving that blood to anybody. And which blood type is the universal acceptor? Can receive blood from anybody. The answer is AB plus. AB plus is the universal acceptor. They have all three antigens on the surface of their red blood cells, so they have no antibodies against any of those antigens. So they can receive blood from anybody. Here's a question. Which blood type would be a good choice for a blood transfusion for someone with B negative blood type? Here are your options. Hopefully you said O negative. O negative is the blood that can be given to B negative. You cannot give them A negative because they do not have the A antigen. You'd kill them if you do that. You can't give them AB plus because, again, they don't have the A antigen, so you would kill them if you gave them that. And you can't give them B plus that Rh antigen. They don't have it. They have minus, so you could potentially kill them if you give them B positive blood. The only type out of these options is O negative. The only other option would be B negative. All right, what antigens does someone with blood type AB negative have on their red blood cells? What antigens are on the surface of their red blood cells? The correct answer is A and B. They have the A antigen, they have the B antigen. The negative means there's no Rh, so they only have the A antigen and the B antigen. What antibodies does someone with a blood type of O positive have in their blood? So what antibodies that are attacking antigens, what antibodies do they have if they are O positive? The correct answer is anti-A antibodies and anti-B antibodies. They do not have the A antigen, so they have antibodies that attack A. They do not have the B antigen, so they have antibodies that attack B. They do have Rh factor. They do have that because it's positive. So they lack those antibodies. If they had those antibodies, it would kill them. So they do not make antibodies against antigens found on their red blood cells. These types of questions will be on the quiz and on the exam, so make sure you understand these concepts. Here's another example. A patient with blood type A negative needs a blood transfusion. Which out of these is the best option? Well, it's O negative again. A positive, they're A negative, so that means you're giving them Rh factor. They don't have it on their red blood cells, so they die. AB negative, B, no B, they do not have B antigens, so you're giving them a foreign antigen and you are killing them. O positive, again positive, Rh factor, they do not have it, so you just killed them. And B positive, they don't have the B antigen, they don't have the Rh antigen. Double whammy, they're dead. The only acceptable out of these options is O negative. The other possible choice for someone who's A negative is A negative. So the same or less. All right, another possible complication that can happen is when a woman who is Rh negative is pregnant with a child that is Rh positive. And this can potentially lead to hemolytic disease in the fetus, also known as erythroblastosis fetalis. The way it works is, okay, you have the mom who's Rh negative. She's pregnant with an infant who is Rh positive, probably because the father was Rh positive. And during childbirth, some of the infant's Rh positive blood ends up going into the mother's bloodstream. This causes the mother to be exposed to the Rh antigen. And so now she's going to start generating antibodies against the Rh. However, this first child is fine. There's no complications, because this is the initial exposure. However, if the woman who now has antibodies against the Rh antigen becomes pregnant a second time, or third or fourth, with a Rh positive infant, then these antibodies will actually be able to cross the placenta and go into the placenta and attack the blood cells of the infant and of the fetus. So it'll actually be able to attack the fetal red blood cells, causing the fetus to potentially get severe anemia. This can cause some major complications. Fortunately, this is treatable. They do tests nowadays of blood types and determine whether or not basically the woman needs to be given treatments that will bind up all the antibodies so they don't have time to go and affect the fetus. And that is it for this lecture.